maybe like they were required to say it, but like, when I graduated, like on the underclassmen of my ministry, like they wrote like notes to the seniors, and they were like, oh, blah blah blah, like thank you for being nice, stuff like that. And then like I would read some of the notes, and like some of the notes were like from people I did never expected to get, and they're like, oh, like thank you for like all the times like you drove me to church or whatever, like I really appreciated it and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, like honestly, like I didn't really care. I was just like, that's just something like I was just willing to do. But like I think like when you're being like super genuine about those little things, like it can still have a big impact, because like there are a lot of things that people take for granted, and like it doesn't end up happening. So like I guess like long story short, like I guess like I do think like those like small things you do, like being a good friend or being a good parent, like does end up meaning a lot, even if it's like not recorded. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Nuanced Nonsense. We're not experts, we just like talking. This is your co-host Alex.
And this is your other co-host, Ben. I brought on a good friend of mine, Usmaan. He's a recently graduated business major, and he's going to work in investment banking in New York soon. So, yeah, brought him on for that. Anything you'd like to add?
No, just thanks for having me. I've never been on a podcast before, so this is exciting.
Wow.
Always so we typically start off with like a softball question, and this one for today is, what's your college experience been like? Any highs, any lows, any regrets, or things you're proud of?
Yeah, well, I guess it's technically a softball question, but that's a lot of material to cover.
Okay, just give us the spark note.
I'll give you the 30 minutes before the exam. Someone hands you a cheat sheet. That's all you get to study version. I mean, all in all, college has been really great. I mean, I think we're all kind of in the same boat where if the way that it's ended has been less ideal. Like, it's like when you have like a plate of Oreos and you have one Oreo left and you're expecting to get a bite of that Oreo, but when you're not looking, someone else takes the Oreo, and then you realize there's no Oreos left, but like in your mind you had already committed to that, it's like kind of got like that same sense of like unfulfillment. But beyond that, I mean, I think everything that's kind of gone on, I've appreciated. I've managed to do a lot of different things in college, and so that's been something I've really, really enjoyed. And then Ben's aware of this, but like freshman year, we went around and did a lot of random things and just kind of explored the city. So I felt like I got to kind of live out everything I had really hoped for. And if I had more time, like I probably would have just been doing more of the same rather than being like, oh, I'm missing out on this, this, and this. I wasn't really in like a bucket list phase or anything like that.
I see. Are there any like regrets you have, or any like lows of college?
Lows, yes. Regrets, not so much. I mean, freshman year was a pretty rough adjustment period in the fall, like trying to find friend groups and like stabilize and all of that. But
for sure,
I think at least something that I think has been true for me and isn't necessarily true for everyone, but I felt like the things that went poorly kind of ended up like always having a silver lining that led me to things that I think I generally appreciated. Like freshman year, I didn't get into any of the organizations like I had thought like that I would, or like that I wanted to. But that meant when I ended up joining them later on, like I appreciated them that much more and like had that much more of like a drive to kind of like achieve and do well and like, appreciate the space. When I didn't like classes, like that kind of made me want to take things that I was more interested in, or kind of like, redirect my path. And so lows, yes. Regrets, not so much, I think. But also I might just be being super idealistic right now, like looking back at it. Like I'm sure if you asked sophomore me how I felt, I'd be like, everything sucks. I hate it,
That's a good point. Would you say you're usually like an optimistic person, or someone who like easily finds like the silver linings and stuff?
I think I'm an optimist because I'm lazy. Like I honestly think being like upset about something is a lot of work. Like think about it. Like if you spend the energy to be constantly like, doom and gloom about your upcoming exams, it doesn't change anything. Like you have to take those exams. Like it just makes everything you also have to do harder. And so I just don't want to put that effort in. So I'm just like, listen, my mentality to most things that like suck is like, it'll be fine. Like in very few cases is it really a matter of life and death. And like the downside is very rarely like so calamitous that like, you know, it's not worth doing. And so in that case, if it's like, if I have to get through it, I might as well like not, you know, burn myself to a crisp, like trying to get through that. Again, that's probably more gratuitous than is actually true, but I think in general, I think it's just easier to kind of be like, it'll be okay. Like, you know, I'll just have to work my way through it. Because otherwise, if you get caught up with every single like tragedy or like barrier that comes up, like I feel like I just wouldn't ever want to keep going after a certain point in time. Yeah.
Interesting. I can see that. I know like for sports, like I guess in soccer, like there's this like coach called like Jose Marino, and like he's super he has like an us versus them mentality, and like he's able to get like a lot of results in the short term, but like that's like having a siege mentality is like requires a lot of like anger and like negative emotions to get a lot of stuff done. But like it's too tiring to be angry for that long. So after a while, like the locker room kind of spirals out of control. They're kind of just like, dude, who really cares? Like we won enough. Like I'm just not motivated anymore. So I can definitely see that in the like just like being so focused on like the negatives or like the doom and gloom is just like too tiring for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and we're what, 22 ballpark, give or take. Like the first 8 years don't really count. Like, you know, that's just training mode. And then after that, like you understand what like fears, concerns are. And so you've had realistically 14 years of life. And like if you're just playing the numbers, you have about 50 something left. And it's like, bro, if you're gonna get burnt out now, like good luck when you have your real midlife crisis. Like yeah.
Speaking of which, since you have such a positive outlook on life, do you think you look more as like a present day sort of look at it, like day to day, or do you like care more about like the big picture, the like future lookout?
Interesting. Well, first of all, I think you're being too generous when you say that I have such a positive outlook on life. I think I don't know if I'd consider myself like a happiness guru or anything like that. Well, that's interesting. Am I more of a day to day or big picture person? I think with how I approach life, it's more little steps, you know? Like, I mean, I think everyone has big governing like principles and goals, you know? Like, I personally don't know, like, career wise, where I'll want to be in 5 years, you know? Like, that can change. But I have a good understanding of, like, what makes me happy and what doesn't make me happy. And so it's like between today, tomorrow, and the next few days, like, what can I do or what am I doing that gets me closer to things I like and further away from things I don't like, you know? So I think I'm more of like an incremental like thinker, but also again, I think it's a little bit of like it's just like being lazier. It is much simpler to worry about tomorrow than it is to plan for a year from now, you know?
Yeah.
It's just in my nature to take the easy way out. And the easy way in this case is to just focus on what I can manage and not focus on like the huge things that I'll get lost in. Also, I mean, you've seen the people who came to college and like had their life planned out and then like something went wrong and they just lost all their sense of purpose and direction. I just would never want to subject myself to that if I could avoid it.
Yeah, it's generally not the move. That
reminds me of that. You don't believe. You go.
Oh, I was just gonna say that reminds me of that scene in Parasite where like, have you watched Parasite?
No, I've been meaning to.
Oh,
that's on my list.
I won't get into it, but there's a scene where someone talks about a plan not working, and I was like, that reminds me of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, when I watch that scene, I'll think of you.
Right. Thank you very much.
I was just like gonna say, I also kind of have a similar mentality to this one. I feel like when you sort of like plan out your life, it never really goes to the way you plan it out. Like for example, I was talking with a friend about like who are the friends you expected to be close with like still throughout college and the friends you actually are close with in reality. And it's like those two things don't overlap very much. And so I'm just thinking like, you know, I think worrying about the future all too much isn't like worth your effort.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I think that's important that you have a sense of direction and a sense of purpose, you know? I think if you spend so much time that like you find yourself in your 30s and 40s and you're still aimless, then something went wrong leading up to that point. But I also don't believe in like building a checkbox or a checklist of different steps or goals where you're setting yourself benchmarks every year. So like I will be 25 and I'll be married at 25, kids at 26, 27, I'll like finish like this program 20, it's just.
Yeah. That's like a recipe for an existential crisis.
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember watching a comedy stand-up yesterday. It was by, her name is like Taylor Tomlinson. She's like a 26-year-old comedian, and then she's kind of talking about like her experience like in her 20s. She's kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of boring as a 20-year-old because everyone talks about how like 20s are like you're supposed to be like when you're having fun, and it's like your last time to be young before you get married and become miserable or something like that. And she's like, well, I'm really boring right now, so I hate to imagine how it gets. And I was reading the comments, and they're kind of just like, honestly, in your 30s and 40s, like you also don't really know what you're doing. It kind of just hits you that you're old because you start to look old, and then it's too late. Guys still think they're kids or something like that, and then girls only realize that they're old because like their ass gets wrinkles. And I was like, well, this is a very optimistic view on life, and I am looking forward to it.
Well, how do you feel about people always say, oh my gosh, like you're going to college, like it's the best 4 years of your life. And then implicit within that is it's all downhill from here, Like how do you reconcile those? Do you believe it? Do you not believe it?
I mean, for some people it might be true because I feel like they've never really grown as people, and like they're always kind of in that mentality, like I just want to have fun. So like it might be their best 4 years in life, at least in terms of enjoyment. I remember like freshman year, like fall semester, like I was, like every freshman or most freshmen, I was having problems like fitting in, like finding friends. So when I heard that statement, that pissed me off because I was like, if these are the best 4 years of my life and it's like this semester times 8, then things are not looking good for Alex. So I remember I was like, I had a lot of pushback to that sentiment because I was just like, I would really prefer for things to be better and not worse from now. But I think it's like as much as you make of it, like there are a lot of people who go into college and like maybe like a lot of their high school friends came with them. They never really felt the need to like branch out, or not a lot of them did, and they just never were able to find their group. Then like I hope it's not the best 4 years of their life because that's not a very fun time. But I think I guess like to reiterate, it's really up to the person. If it is like, I would prefer, even if you had a good 4 years, that is not the best 4 years of your life because you graduate at like 22, 23, 21. So you have like hopefully 60 years of life left. Like that would be a really painful 60 years of existence.
Yeah. I also kind of think you set yourself up for failure. Like I don't know, the way I sort of like look at it is throughout college, like it's always been sort of like a changing sort of experience. Like it wasn't stagnantly like good the entire time. It was like up and down, up and down, up and down. There's a lot of goods and bads in college. And so I realized that like, I feel like life after college is like that, but you just take out the school element and plug back in work. So like, I feel like it shouldn't be like a sudden drop off. It should be about the same. You're just like replacing one element of like a great deal of time usage with another.
That's fair. Well, if you could know which year of your life would be the best one, would you want to know like ahead of time?
Absolutely not.
No, I feel like I would turn it into like the worst year of my life because I would have all these expectations, and then I feel like I would just not enjoy stuff I would have enjoyed if I didn't know.
What about if you could know what the worst year of your life is? Would you want to know?
Well, that's a good question.
I feel like probably, or like worse. Like, is it worse as in like I just die, or like?
Well, I mean, I guess
that confirms your fears.
Really the worst thing that can happen to you. I mean, now we're getting super existential here. I don't know.
Wait, do you like? I don't people tell me about this sometimes, how they're like, they lay awake at night thinking about like death and stuff like that. But does this happen to you guys? Because I don't feel that.
Yeah, I think about that. That's happened to me quite often recently, actually, since we're
Mm.
graduating. I was like, now I graduate, and because like up to this point, life is fairly structured. You have like school and like internships and stuff to reach towards. But after that, it's really up to you what you want to make out of it. So I was like, I'm gonna be graduating. Life's gonna pass by. I'm gonna be old, and I'm gonna die. I'm like, how do I feel about that? But yeah, I do think about death a lot now.
What about Usman?
Not particularly. No. I mean, I think I've had all those like it used to be more when I was younger and more attention seeking. I know I've changed so much. But like, you always wonder like if I died, how would people feel? You know?
Mhm,
Like,
for sure.
if you could well, I mean, it's like Huckleberry Finn. Everyone thought he died, and so he goes and he sees his own like funeral, and then they're like, "Oh my God, wait, he's not dead." But he like sees people crying. He's like, "Oh my gosh, they actually love me." Like, like who would be affected the most, and how affected would they be? Those kinds of things, I think I have thought about, but I've never really like thought about my actual literal death.
Mm.
Um, would you want to know how you die or when?
I would prefer to know the method over when.
I don't want to know either. I feel like
I mean,
I would
if
just
I had
spend
to
the rest of
choose
my
one.
life. Yeah. Huh?
If I
If
had
I
to
had to
choose
choose, oh, if I had to
Oh,
choose one, maybe method as well. Um, yeah, I feel like when is like my life is going to seem a lot shorter. Even if I know I'm dying at like 120 or something, I'll just be like, I feel like whenever I set a limit, like I know how long I'm going to be somewhere or do something or be with someone, then like it will always feel a lot shorter to me than versus like a year of doing something but just not knowing that when it's going to end.
what
that's
about you?
interesting. I don't know. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, it's really easy for me to, you know, once you pick a choice, it is very easy to then work backwards and see all the problems with that choice, right? But that's because it is easy to view that problem in the context of like what we know. Like we're used to not knowing when we die or how we die. But if the norm was that you knew when you died or how you died, then would those really seem like issues? Like, or would we have just grown in different ways to like cope with it? Like right now, it's such a
Uh,
huge fundamental change to like the way that I would live that like it's impossible for me to comprehend how like I could like manage that in a normal way
mhm.
because it's so foreign. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's like when you are approached by like a really like how do I state like a out of world experience, right? And you just don't know
Yeah.
how to like comprehend. Like for example, in like TV shows when like the main character encounters something like so crazy, and then they like are just like kind of shocked and they stand there, and then the character ends up dying or something, and then a lot of the viewers are like, "What the fuck? Why did you like do X, Y, or Z?" But that's because you encountered just something that's beyond you.
Right. Yeah. So with that said, I feel like I would. Oh, this is such a broad question. Okay. I'll answer and then I'll explain. I think I'd rather know when I die than how I die
Really?
because I mean I feel like having deadlines would make me like appreciate the value of time more. I think my
Okay.
concern is that like if I died next week and I like look back at it, I would feel like my time were wasted. But if I knew that, hey, you're gonna get to 23, like that's all you've got, like then you feel more driven to make use of that time.
Mhm.
And I think yes, even if you live to 120, like you would still feel like that's not enough time, but you would appreciate that time more. You know,
Mhm.
Mm.
that's my positive outlook. Like that's my I'm hoping that I wouldn't be like, got 20 years, I can put it off, or something like that. I think if I knew how I died, I would just live in constant fear of that thing. Like, if it was like you're gonna die in a car accident,
Yeah.
cool. So am I just now gonna, it's like this happens so often in like Greek myths where then the hero tries to like avoid whatever the method is and like it changes their life and they live a terrible life, but they end up dying that way anyways, because that's what was fated. you know,
Yeah.
and so now you haven't enjoyed. Yeah, it's like when you know, there was all these like terrorist attacks going on in Europe and all these like huge calamities happening, like public massacres and stuff like that. And my mom would just be like, okay, like stay away from crowds, like don't do this. And to me, it's like, how much are you going to let fear rule your life? You know, at a certain point, you know, if that's what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. But like, you can't live your life in fear of like statistical improbabilities.
Mm.
So that's why I'd rather know when than how.
That's fair.
It's like the idea of like all we have to fear is fear itself.
Yes, call me Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
The next president is sitting in a Zoom call right here. He was here first.
We're going to skyrocket to Joe Rogan popularity levels.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I remember I think that's like a common argument that's like why people like believe we should appreciate life, or why we get so much done is because of like scarcity and kind of just like the temporal nature of life. Because like if we were all immortal, then like we could just do whatever. We always just push things off because we have an unlimited amount of time, because we know death is, you know, somewhere along the way we're like, oh, like we feel motivated to do stuff.
Yeah. That mortality really makes you appreciate
So
smaller things.
On the other note, it's like, would you want to be immortal?
Oh, I was thinking about that as we talked about this. If it were only me, definitely not, because that'd be so depressing. Could you imagine?
That would be terrible.
But what if everyone was immortal?
Well, then I think we'd have a huge societal problem. Again, maybe this is one of those like I'm incapable of like working out like how there would be a solution to this because it's just so foreign to me. But like if we have a resource issue and people currently die, like imagine what would happen if none of us ever died.
we would be screwed. We would definitely need space colonies.
Yeah. Or maybe like fertility rates would go down or something, or I don't know, you know. But
that's true.
Well, I mean, did y'all ever read Aragon?
I haven't.
Yes.
Have you read the full series?
Yeah, but I honestly don't really remember much outside of like the first two books. I remember he accomplishes his objective in like the last book, and then he kind of just like sails away, and I was just like, where's the ship? But yeah, that's
yeah. I don't plan on reading it, so just let's have this discussion.
Okay, well, I mean, it's more so. There's elves in the book, and they are immortal.
Oh,
okay, they because of that they have way less children, and they also they only die if like they're killed, you know, like in combat, but no death from natural causes. And they're also super one with nature, and so they live in this utopia. Like they have no professions. They all just have hobbies that they just work on for their entire lives. And like that just seems super lame, you know. Like I feel like you perceive time as such a different construct, like that you don't do anything. Like there's nothing to work towards. Like there's no, you know, there's no sense of like urgency because you're affected by nothing.
Sure.
But with like conditional immortality, I feel like there is that sense of it. Like especially like let's say this is a high Earth sort of medieval fantasy. Like I feel like you would typically be at threat of dying, but like because they're dying through combat, right?
Yeah, but I was saying like in context of like if we had immortality, like would you as a society want to opt in?
Yeah, because like potentially like we might end up looking like those elves, which like I guess to you seems like not that exciting of a life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like would you rather live a long time and very plainly, or would you rather live a short time but very like, you know, make a big splash?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it really depends on the person, honestly.
Well,
Yeah.
like if you could have like what if you could choose to have an impact on the world, society, or whatever, in exchange for like life, you know, like in exchange for time, like okay, you will be very important to like world affairs or like something like that, but you won't have a long life, you know, because that's like too OP to be that important and like live for like 80 years or 90 years or something like that, you know,
For sure.
like like your life literally burns short but bright.
Yeah.
Would you take that, or would you rather just have your time?
How is the impact like sort of like undetermined? Like it could be positive or negative, or it's like my impact. Like I can choose exactly what I would do.
Let's go with undetermined, but you know it will be seismic.
Okay.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's not just, I don't know, like some C-tier celebrity stuff. It's like, like you're in textbooks, people will know you. Like,
Yeah. Your Jesus level.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying like, I have the possibility of starting World War III and then just not being around for it.
sure,
Nah.
yeah, maybe you could be like a I don't know, like a Stalin type, or you could be like a Kennedy. I don't know, you know.
Would I?
That's a hard question.
I
I feel
feel
like
like you go. You go.
I feel like if I feel like my gut is to say like yes, like I want to have an impact on the world because like you know like living a life where like you're just doing like nothing meaningful like really sucks. But I think like the shortness is like really hard because like then you start to think like all the what ifs, right? Like what if like you have an impact but you're not able to like make to accomplish everything like you wish to do. Because I know that's a big thing for like specifically like Kennedy and stuff like that. There's always questions, but like what would happen if he lived? You know, what would happen if Lincoln like lived? But
Yeah,
I guess something is better than nothing. Like you know, 25 times like I guess if you have to quantify impact, 25 times like a positive number or a negative number. Um, I guess the value of that would be still more than like a big number times zero. So I guess I would pick impacts, but I don't feel super great about this decision.
yeah.
I feel like I should pick yes out of like sort of like what is this called where like you feel like you owe something to the world because like this sounds like I'm the only one getting this choice, right? So I feel like I owe it to people who didn't get the choice to take this choice.
Well, what if everyone could choose? Like you turn 16, you get your driver's license, and you get to pick if you want to live a long time or a short time.
With these
You know, it's
conditions,
it's like yeah, it's like
Ah,
with the SAT and yeah,
interesting.
then I wouldn't pick it because I'd be like, I have faith in someone else to live out, I can live vicariously through them. But I think a thing is that like A, I can reap the benefits. B, I'm not gonna be in the textbooks have a big impact, but I can still have like a low level impact um, on like someone's life or whatnot, and I'm satisfied with that.
yeah. So I was gonna flip the other side as like you could. I think I would go for big impact, short life, but I mean something worth thinking about is like even if you don't have like a global impact, like do you still like value like what Alex was talking about, like like being a good father or being a mentor to like multiple people, but it's not going to get written about anywhere.
I think those kind of things are like super. I think they're arguably more. They mean something more to you because like you know, or rather you don't know until they tell you,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then when they do tell you, like they're like, oh, like I wrote something and then it's like I dedicate it to you, or like I'm telling you right now. Like I feel like those mean so much because you kind of don't like when you do like good deeds, you kind of don't expect it to come back around, and then when it does, sort of like you get acknowledged for it, it has like a really good like warm fuzzy feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly feel like I feel like those little things, like honestly, like those are what kind of builds up the world, right? Like you want a society filled with people like having all these like low level impact versus like not everyone like not doing anything, but then, like one guy is like carrying like society or whatever. Like I remember like that was actually like I remember like Ben knows, but like I remember like fall semester senior year, that was something like I struggled with was like, have I even done anything with like my time in college? Like have I left an impact on anyone? And I was really sad about that. But I think like, you know, that maybe like they were required to say it. But like, you know, when I graduated, like on the underclassmen of my ministry, like they wrote like notes to the seniors and they were like, oh blah blah blah, like thank you for being nice, stuff like that. And then like I would read some of the notes and like some of the notes were like from people I did never expected to get. And they're like, oh like thank you for like all the times like you drove me to church or whatever. Like I really appreciated it and stuff like that. And I was like, oh like honestly like I didn't really care. I was just like, that's just something like I was just willing to do. But like, I think like when you're being like super genuine about those little things, like it can still have a big impact because like there are a lot of things that people take for granted, and like it doesn't end up happening. So like I guess like long story short, like I guess like I do think like those like small things you do, like being a good friend or being a good parent, like does end up meaning a lot, even if it's like not recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Usman?
Um, I mean, I think those things matter a lot. I think they do. They've defined a lot of like my college experience, like being mentored and then mentoring. But I think I'm very change oriented too, and I think one of my biggest like concerns about life is like just being nothing or being average or you know like having been like given a lot by my parents and just kind of like maintaining versus making something of it. And so I think I would lean towards doing something big that would have an impact even if it meant living less long. But maybe I also just say that because I'm 22 and I feel like I'll live forever, you know. It's hard to separate like
That's true.
the ignorance of youth versus reality.
Yeah. I feel like we've literally been like kids or like just young people our whole lives. So sometimes it's really hard to imagine what is it like just to be old and like past your prime.
Yeah. I mean, it's not quite the same, but like it's so college is funny to me in a few ways. One of them is like when you're a senior, you're maybe, or even if you're a junior, like you're only 1 or 2 years older than like freshmen, but you were treated like you were exponentially like more experienced and wise than them, you know?
For sure.
Like someone who just walks into college is like a newborn child and you are like a 30, 40-year-old like parent, you know?
Yeah.
So that dynamic has always been interesting to me where like we also have been in the situation for a while now, so you feel like you have a lot of experience, but like just like how I see a freshman freaking about their classes and I'm like literally stop, give me like they're like I don't know what to take. I'm like if you just like sit down, shut up, like I will make your schedule for you and I don't care what your questions are, I will tell you this is the right thing for you to do and you just need to do it. Like just as how I can have that feeling to someone who's like 3 years older than me, like I'm sure like, you know, like my parents like feel that way about me, but like they don't do that because you have to let people like struggle through their own thing, you know.
Sure.
Like no matter how much I want to just tell that freshman to do this, this, and this, and like relax and it'll be fine. Like they have to figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like yeah, I've kind of noticed that too, where it's like I guess as a freshman, when I was a freshman, I saw the seniors as like I don't know, really experienced adults basically. And then when I became a senior, I was like, I still feel the same. That's probably how they felt too. And then seeing how like yeah, sometimes like I would see like a freshman like freaking out about like CS or something because I study CS, and then I was like, yeah, those were the good days when that was the big issue of your life. And it's funny because like once we graduate, or we graduated, but once like you know we enter the workforce, we're back at the bottom of the totem pole, and like now everyone's like, oh, you're so young, you know, It's kind of funny how like it flips so quickly. But it was like that in high school too, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like part of what plays into this is the fact that like it feels like time in college is a lot more. I don't want to say it's like it has more into it, but it feels like you can pack a lot more things into one day because like as opposed to like you're coming fresh out of high school where everything is so structured and like all of your time, it feels like 1 hour is worth 1 hour, but in college it feels like like 1 hour is worth like a day, and on the same idea that you can get close to someone a lot quicker in college than you can in other settings, I feel like speaks to that same idea where, your time is like your biggest resource in college, and like how you use it is like what defines your college experience.
I mean, I feel like college, the days pass slowly, but the weeks pass quickly, you know?
That's a good way of putting it.
But why is it, do you think, that like it's so much easier to become close to people in college versus the real world,
The way I rationalized it to myself is like in college, you don't even have to go to class, you don't even have to sleep, you don't even have to eat. Like you kind of just like do whatever fucking shit you want at like whatever pleasure you want. And so like the result is that you could be with your friends all 24 hours a day if you really, really tried to. Like there is nothing holding you back from doing so. And I think that possibility in some people's reality is what makes it that you can really like hone in on like the deeper aspects of friendship so quickly.
I would say it's like proximity and mindset. Like everyone is like, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are kind of living around the same area, like, near the campus or on campus. And everyone kind of comes into college with the mindset like, oh, like this is where I meet my lifelong friends. I have to be intentional, stuff like that. So I think once they graduate, they kind of lose that proximity. They lose that intentionality. And like that's why it might be why it's harder to make friends, because like they either assume like that I have to have it all together, or it's just harder to like find people that close. I also think like with so many people in college, it's easier to find people who are kind of similar to you in terms of like interests or like hobbies or values, and like you're all in the same life stage as well.
Yeah. That's that I think is interesting. Where like at this point in time, like your physical age and the stage you are in life like tend to align pretty well with like people around you,
Yeah.
Whereas I think as soon as you leave college, it changes very quickly. Like people can be 25 but like have kids, or be married, and you could be like 35 and like not have kids, not married, like still just very focused on work, like it's once you're out of this like unified atmosphere, things change very quickly. But
Sure.
I also think college knows, I think we reward vulnerability more than we do in like the real world, like it's kind of an expectation that you are like vulnerable with people in college.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, I think it's definitely like, well, I think it's kind of a meme, but it's definitely, you definitely hear more of those like, oh yeah, I stayed up until like 5 a.m. talking with my friends about like some so-and-so like deep topic or whatever. And everyone's like, yeah, like me too. And then, everyone kind of resonates with that, versus in like the real life, you're kind of just like, I need to sleep by 11 so I can wake up at 7 a.m. for my job. And everyone's like, ripped.
Yeah, no, and when I interned last summer, it was weird to me that we like I like worked really closely with these people, but we weren't really like, I wouldn't consider close. Like I truly understood what it was to like have like a work friend and like a friend.
Yeah.
Like they didn't really know anything about me. I didn't know anything about them, but we got along. But like
Yeah.
details were missing.
What was the major like barrier between like a work friend and a friend?
You're not actually trying to hang out. You're just trying to like, I'm not trying to enjoy your company. I'm trying to get through the day, It is more a like kinship born out of circumstance and necessity than it is out of need or desire, or like I just, yeah, like I would talk to, for example, Brett, my manager or whatever, like we would, I like the guy, we got along well, but we only spoke because I mean, he had to tell me what to do, but also like, because we were sitting next to each other for 6 hours a day,
Mm.
so it was just like, what are we going to do, sit here in silence?
Yeah.
And then, but like after work, like we didn't hang out, like when we were traveling, we'd go out sometime, but like we didn't really talk about anything. There was just, a little bit of like what both of y'all were alluding to, like proximity and time. Like we didn't have proximity or time. We had proximity, but we had other things that were taking precedence.
Yeah.
Given more time, maybe I was only there for 8 weeks. Maybe we would become friends, but it's, again, the circumstances don't lend to.
Yeah.
Don't lend to like deep connections.
I can see that. I remember, I don't remember why I was having this conversation. It might have been with you, Ben. But I remember like, just like the idea, just because you're around someone like all day, like just doesn't mean like y'all automatically get together. Like I remember like as a
Oh, I
kid, like
know
a lot of Asian parents are usually kind of just like, oh, this kid and this kid are around the same age. Like my kid and their kid are around the same age. Let's put them together in a room and they'll definitely become best friends. And then it's very like wildly varying results. But I remember like last summer, when I interned, I remember like my team. Well, part of it was because I had already had like a close friend who happened to be on the same team. But I remember like our team was able to kind of become relatively close, like I guess as like work friends. But like the internship was only 10 weeks long, so there's only so far it can go. But I remember just being like really surprised, but like being able to like hang out with them or like
Hello?
talk about like random stuff. Because
I
yeah, I
disconnect.
guess. Wait, can you not hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I heard someone saying hello.
Did I cut out?
Oh
No,
no.
I can hear you too, Ben.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry. I thought you said hello, Ben. So now I was like,
I
oh, can
did
you
say
not?
hello because I thought I cut out.
Oh, I see. Anyway, wrapping up my story a bit. Yeah, I guess I was just like really appreciative of like just like little stuff we would do because I was like, oh, I just expected to go to work, maybe talk to like my close friend, and then just go back home and then sleep and then rinse and repeat. But yeah, I guess it helped me realize that like friendship is like doing a lot of like the little stuff that you're not required to do. Because like I remember in college, like a lot of times like clubs would host like socials or events to like get people close together. But I realized like, if the only thing you do is like go to that type of stuff, like you're not actually gonna be friends with the people like at those events. Like the stuff that like actually matters is like if they invite you to like I don't know their apartment to like play video games or something, or like have a spontaneous like dinner hangout or something. But yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, like, how much do you value like spontaneity? As someone was asking me this other day, and I didn't quite know how to answer it myself. Because like I feel like I like it, but I don't know if like I seek it out in the same way some other people do.
I think appreciate people who can match spontaneity. Like I'm kind of more like casual, fast and loose, like kind of just go with things. And so like if I know I have friends who if I text them and I'm like, hey, 30 minutes from now, you want to go get dinner, they will never say yes. Like even if they're free, like they just don't, they need things scheduled. And so I appreciate friends who are capable of being like, yeah, sure, let's run with it. And those are some like the best interactions I have. Like, once I was just dropping off something at McCombs and I saw one of my friends walking out and I was like, hey, get in the car. And he's like, what? And I was like, I don't know. I've got like an hour. I was like, you're going home. Like, just get in the car. Let's go eat. Like, let's do something. It's like, cool, whatever. Hopped in. Like, we had a great time. Um, didn't even end up getting food. Like, got sidetracked. But it was just like a fun overall experience. But yeah, I mean, so I like spontaneity, but I also understand to a certain degree you can't entirely be like spontaneous because otherwise your life would just never function. Like, you need a little bit of routine and schedule.
Yeah, I resonate with Usman's answer. I don't think I'm necessarily the most spontaneous guy because I'm afraid of people will say no or like everyone just happens to have something scheduled. But I appreciate it and I think it's pretty fun when like this happens because you're not really expecting anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think spontaneity is necessary. You know, it adds some sort of interest to your life. Like if everything were a Google Calendar, like what would the fun be? Like, are you
That
scheduling a
is
fun? You know?
that is some people's lives. I've seen the calendars.
Yeah,
So
but
like that, yeah.
I think the day that you schedule into your Google Calendar fun time, like you probably need to restructure what's going on in your days.
That's true.
I don't know, because like I see this, and the reason why I bring this up because like I've seen the dichotomy kind of like where it's like the people who kind of like have everything planned out, and then it's like people who like kind of require spontaneity for them to be like close friends, and I just like it's hard for me to understand both sides honestly because I'm just like if everything's planned, like it kind of makes no sense why it would suddenly just be fun or like something like that. But then if it's like if you require spontaneity, then how could you ever make things just happen? Like how can like plans like even happen? Is like it would only happen if like you just happen to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I guess like the yeah, I guess you just need balance, balance of the force. But yeah, I guess you just need a mixture. Some people might, you know, it's like a slider. Some people might need 80-20 one side, but 40-60 one other side. But yeah, I guess it's up to the person in the end, unfortunately. Like all
So
these
where do you
answers have
put
been
yourselves on the slider?
70-30.
60-40, 60 being scheduled, I think. Yeah.
70-30, 70 being spontaneous.
Mm,
What about you, Ben?
I feel like I like a 50-50 split. Because like I remember
That's
thinking
the
about this.
worst, Ben. Having no opinion is the worst opinion.
Are you kidding? Okay, here, listen to my reasoning, right? Because there's some things you just need to plan, right? Like some things cannot function without a plan. Like especially things that require a little bit more forethought if you want to do something, rather than just like, oh hey, let's go get food. Like, hey, let's go take grad pics, or hey, let's go do this thing that requires more forethought. Those would never crop up if you did them spontaneously. However, there's some things if you plan them, they would never feel spontaneous, and that feeling of like sort of like in the moment serendipitous friendship would never occur.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I still think it's not a real stance. Because I don't think someone's saying like when they say like they lean one way or another is that they prefer like that they need their interactions to come in that mix, or that like,
Mhm.
oh, I prefer spontaneity and so therefore I will disregard like planned events more, you know. But it's like what do you find appreciation in? Like would you rather someone pick you up and you go on a whirlwind, you know, and it's just like fly by the seat of your pants like you're doing a thing? Or would you prefer like a okay, I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock, like we're gonna do this, like bring this, do that, you know?
Mm.
Both of them are acceptable in their own rights, but like which one is more fulfilling to you, you know?
Okay, I
Yeah.
guess if that's the question, then to go on the themes of this podcast, I think we have to go spontaneity. This thing was born out of a spontaneous, like just thought. And so to be in line with that, and to be, I guess that's like more aligned with like me and Alex's like collective mentality is like, this is something that's like worthwhile. And I guess I prefer this because this felt more fulfilling than like going through the steps. Like this podcast originally started, we literally, the first episode, we just like had the very day is we thought of it was the first episode. We just had someone come
Yeah.
over, we filmed it, and we didn't know jack shit what we were getting into. And it turns out there's a lot of shit that you get into.
We still don't know jack shit of what we're doing. We're just finding out as we're going. But yeah, I think something I was listening when like Usmaan was saying was just like, yeah, even if you prefer something, doesn't mean you don't value the other side. It's just like what's your like natural inclination. But yeah. Like,
To go back to, let's bring it all back home. So we had some actual planned topics, but we kind of touched them, kind of didn't. How do you feel about the idea of like home and here, let me rephrase this. Like, do you feel like Austin became your home in the 4 years you were here, or like some form of like home away from home?
Um Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like when I'm not in Austin, like I've missed it, you know, and going back, like it felt right, you know, when I was back this weekend. Um, and I think that's because I had my own space there, you know, like had my own place, like my apartment and my room. It was something I was pretty comfortable with, and
Mm.
like I feel some sort of association with Austin, you know.
Yeah. Do you think like I guess kind of like adding on to Ben's question, like did you still view Plano um like where you're from like as like home, or do you like view like Austin as like this is like where I call home now, and then Plano's kind of like home, like the opposite, like home away from home, or like it's like familiar, but I would rather be back in Austin.
Uh, um, no, Plano's also home, but
Hmm.
I prefer being in Austin, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I would say Plano's not home, or like I hate Plano or anything like that. I think it's like I'm trying to think of how I'd phrase it. I can't come up with like a good reference point, but they're both definitely places that like I consider like safe and like homely. There's just one that I prefer to another because I think one is more defined by me and one is like
Hmm.
defined more like by like my experiences and you know like family and stuff like that. But like this is like my parents' home and
Yeah.
also my home. Austin is my home. Like I made it, you know, for myself.
Interesting. That's a good perspective. I feel like for me, um, I guess I don't know if I would consider Austin a home because like I knew kind of like going back to like earlier about like you know like a set time frame. I knew I would be in Austin for 4 years, and like even then like there's breaks and stuff like that. I wasn't in Austin for like all 4 years, so yeah, I kind of felt like you know even though I was there for college, like I was only there in Austin for a specific subset, like part of Austin, right? I was almost always on like in West Campus or like in on campus.
Mhm.
If I went somewhere like a restaurant, like I mean, I guess that's kind of exploring the city, but um, yeah, it just didn't really feel like I really knew the city. So I was kind of like, yeah. But there were moments where like I would
Mhm.
come back home to Plano and like it would seem very like weird. Like before, it would seem like, oh, I'm back from a long vacation, but then like afterwards, I would come back. I'd be like, huh, this feels like I don't like I was kind of like, oh, I kind of miss my bed in Austin, but yeah, it was like feeling a little out of place. But then we got kicked out of campus anyway, so then I was like, yeah, this is home again.
Interesting. Yeah. Huh. That's an interesting way of putting it. Because, like, you know, when you're on vacation, like, like I forgot about that feeling of when you first step into your house for the first time, and like, you know, like your home has a smell that you forget about until you're away from it for a while.
Hmm.
Yeah, I forgot that feeling. That's a good way of explaining it. Hmm. Well, would you say would did you do you want Austin to be like home, or did you just want Austin to be a place that you lived? You know.
Hmm. Honestly, that's a good question. If I'm gonna be real, I don't think I really wanted Austin to be like my home. You know, I think I was still attached to Plano because that's where my parents lived. I've been here my whole life. Um, but yeah, I guess I just wanted to know Austin is in terms of like, oh, like I'm familiar with this like landscape because I've been here for a while. But I know what's like interesting is like I know for some people is like if their parents moved from like their hometown where like they're raised, like they're not really gonna view that place as like home anymore. Because like you know, home is where like I guess your friends and family are. But I feel like for me, even if like my parents moved from Plano, like I would still kind of associate myself with Plano in some way. Maybe just because like I'm attached with the experiences I have. But yeah, I'm not necessarily like super, I don't know, like P Town, let's go, you know, or whatnot. But yeah, maybe I'm just like attached based on like how long I've been here.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I would agree. I think even if my parents moved, I would still feel association with Plano. It's hard not to after living here for so long. Um, but I don't know if I would consider it home because there's nothing for me to really come back to,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like, imagine like we grow up, like next year we all move to different places, you know, your friends, your family moves to kind of place still represent home if it doesn't have any of the facets of it that you're used to, you know? Like, I wonder how my parents feel when they go back to like Pakistan. You know, no one really lives there anymore, but they grew up there.
Yeah.
But is it still home or is it just a place that has a lot of memories?
I feel like there's the element of like the nostalgia coming back, but like it is hard to say that a place is your home when there's not like you don't live there, right? And there's no like as you said earlier, there's no functions of it that like show that you live there.
Yeah. That's a good point. I don't think I've ever really made a distinction between home and place full of like nice memories that speak to my heart. Um, but I know there's like the concept you can have like multiple homes, you know, you can rep multiple cities or multiple houses or whatever. But yeah,
It's
that's a
also
good question.
like it's like in Thor Ragnarok when he said, "Our Asgard is not a place; it's a people." There's that
Mm,
element of that tied into it.
for sure,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
to start wrapping things up, we're gonna just final question. What would you want to do once quarantine is over?
Oh, what would I want to do? I mean, I feel like it's everyone's typical answer. Like, I'd want to hang out with the friends, man. Like, I would want to get out of the house. Okay. I want to move. That's why.
Ooh.
Because, I mean, hanging out with the friends, like, even when I'm at home, just isn't the same. Like, I feel like I was in my life, a point in my life where I was growing up, moving out. And, like, you know, it was like leaving the nest. Like, I was figuring out, like, rent, housing, savings, like, becoming an adult. And then all of a sudden, everything was like, stop. Move in with your parents. Like, you know. So I would think I was in a pretty definitive transition point, and all of a sudden that got cut short. So I'd want to finish out that transition.
I see.
Solid.
Y'all.
Honestly, I feel like I plan to have dedicated like the last bit of senior year to just like hanging out, having fun, making like the final hurrah of good memories. Because like I still had good memories prior to then, but it's like it's that last bit that really kind of like says something in your mind. It's like the beginning and the end. It's like the middle of the story can like be whatever, but a lot of people remember the end and the beginning when they're really good. And so that's kind of like what I wanted to do. So maybe to like just make it come to a close is what I was thinking.
Yeah, honestly, I would just go outside and not feel guilty. You know, go to gatherings larger than 50. Feels nice. Um, I think I'll probably honestly even before like I was thinking about like during like most like breaks in college, 90% of what I was doing then is what I'm doing now, except like I just don't go out occasionally to like watch a movie with a friend or like eat at a restaurant. So
Yeah.
maybe part of me is like, you know, maybe I should like do stuff I don't usually do and be more proactive because I'm like, it's kind of sad when like, you know, you're in like quarantine isolation, your life doesn't change that much. But yeah.
You were always in quarantine. You just didn't
Yes.
know it.
I was preparing since I was born. I'm precocious. But yeah, I guess like finally wrapping things up. Once again, we're nuanced nonsense. We're not experts, but we just like talking. Right, signing out.
Thanks for having me. Bye, y'all.